All right, welcome in. This is Trey Dalbert, founder, owner, whatever you want to call me, head honcho. And I don't really have a title for this video yet, but I kind of wanted to do a big, long video on Chaim Bloom, right? And of course, Chaim Bloom, he runs the Boston Red Sox. There's a lot of people that are angry at Chaim Bloom, and Red Sox fans have a reason to be angry at Chaim Bloom. However, I would just like to use the words over and over and over again, misguided, right? The fans are angry and their anger is misguided, right? Chaim Bloom has good intentions, but his intentions are misguided. And through this video together, we are going to learn how to properly run a baseball team. Every executive has their strengths and weaknesses, including Chaim Bloom. Now, while Chaim Bloom may be very good at his job, he doesn't know how to run the Boston Red Sox yet, and he needs my help in the worst way possible, so I am here to help provide it for him. Hopefully after this video, they just give me a call and hire me as a consultant. That's all I really want. He can have all the credit. But the bottom line here today is we are going to figure out why Chaim Bloom is making the decisions that he is making and why his decisions are misguided and how he can properly learn how to become the general manager of the Boston Red Sox. Those are very key elements that we're going to go over. Let's dive in. I have a lot of tabs on the screen here, and I'm going to try to go over this as long as possible because obviously running a baseball team is very complicated and very difficult. Nobody's denying that. Nobody's denying that. But hopefully together through this video, we can kind of learn some basic principles and fundamental beliefs that I have and why he's making the mistakes that he's making. So let's kind of go over it. First things first, right? I'm going to stress this because I'm going to stress it 100 times, right? I'm going to stress it 100 times. And if you are not looking through this lens, you don't really know what you're doing, right? The 40-man roster is the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster. I can't stress it enough. If you ask your buddies how they should run their baseball team, if their first response is not the 40-man roster, they don't know what they're doing. The rules indicate that you must have a strong 40-man roster. Of course, we don't have to go all over all of the rules. You can only send guys down 3 times. Once they have 5 years of service time, you can't send them down at all, blah, 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 blah. The important thing to remember and the basic fundamentals is that nothing matters more than this 40-man roster, right? Your active roster is your active roster, okay? And you obviously need a strong active roster. But to maintain excellence through the 162 game schedule, you must have a 40-man roster, okay? And the bottom line is, if you look at the Red Sox 40-man roster, we don't have to go too far into it, but there's obviously a lot of bums on it, right? Nobody has a 40-man roster right now better than the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I want you to keep that in mind. The Dodgers have the best 40-man roster in baseball. However, he comes from, this is where Chaim Bloom comes from, right? The Dodgers, Andrew Friedman, technically the Rays, right? But Andrew Friedman makes a lot of mistakes too, and it's a lot of the same mistakes that Chaim Bloom makes, except for the fact that they are further along in the process because Friedman was obviously hired by the Dodgers sooner. And by no means is Andrew Friedman this all-world GM, right? Yordan Alvarez, he was a Dodgers prospect. He'd look really good in the Dodgers right now, wouldn't he? They traded him. O'Neal Cruz, he was a Dodgers prospect, right? Imagine if he was a shortstop right now for the Dodgers. Where would they be? And Trey Turner's obviously very good. But, I mean, if they had O'Neal Cruz playing somewhere, imagine how good the Dodgers would be. So, by no means is Andrew Friedman this all-world rock star GM. He's just better than everyone else in the league, right? So, let's go over it. First, let's get this out of the way, right? Fans are angry, right? And they have a reason to be angry. But the fans are misguided, right? And I have a video that I want to pull up to share with everyone because I think it kind of describes the casual fan's mindset, right? The casual fan, they're not very intelligent, they're not very educated, they don't really know the sports thing. But if they don't really see the things that are simple to them, they kind of lash out and they kind of, act like this. So I have a little bit of a clip here. Some random lady that called into a Boston sports radio field. But it's an important clip and I want to play it, right? So let's play it together.
Yeah, I just want to say flat out, I think Chaim Bloom's a coward. He doesn't want to talk to any of those
And he may be a coward, but that's not the point. Let's continue.
guys. He doesn't care what happens to him. He is a flat coward, and that's what people should call him. He's a coward. He didn't want anything to do with it. Furthermore, he has no plan.
That isn't true, but let's just watch through the whole video first.
You can keep asking him what's the plan. There isn't one. That's why he can't tell you what it is. He's like stumble bumming his way through administration over there. It's pathetic. And I'm incensed about this whole thing with Vasquez. Incensed. I think that was awful what he did because he excised the heart out of that team. It hurt morale and hurt the team. Nothing good about it.
Appreciate it.
Wow,
Thank you, Diane. Coward.
Coward.
A smart coward, by the way.
Oh, he went to Yale.
He did go to Yale, and he's very intelligent. Now, we're not going to take that away from Chaim Bloom. This lady, I'm sure she's a nice lady. I'm sure maybe she's an asshole in the grocery store. It doesn't really matter what her opinion is because she's not very educated, right? There is a plan, okay? There is a plan, and I'm going to show you right here. The 40-man roster is the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster. Okay, when you start in a deficit with your 40-man roster, you have to do things to create a surplus in the 40-man roster, right? Here's a perfect example of what we're talking about. When you have too many prospects that you can't protect for your 40-man roster, you become Brian Cashman in the Yankees, and he's learning from his mistakes now. See how many prospects he kind of traded on the fringe of the 40-man. If you kind of look at what Cashman has done, he's traded a lot of those fringe guys. Hey, he's got to make the 40-man roster. He's got to make the 40-man roster. He's got to make the 40-man roster. When you have too many of them and you don't cash your chips in, this is what happens. You have too many guys and they get plucked by other organizations, right? Here's a perfect example. Garrett Whitlock. He's a guy, he always had talent, had some injury history, right? He had some Tommy John surgery, but if you're the Boston Red Sox and you don't have a ton of great guys on your 40-man roster, you can afford to take some swings in the Rule 5 draft. And a lot of the time, they don't always work, but if you're smart about who you pick, you can turn it into another asset. And in this case, Garrett Whitlock turned into a nice little chess piece, right? But that's not really the whole point. Let's start from the beginning, right? This is obviously an important aspect, but let's start from the beginning. Why did the Boston Red Sox hire Chaim Bloom? Sustainable success for multiple years, right? That's the goal. You never want to be in last place, technically, even though I don't necessarily agree with that. The idea is you're always in the hunt. You're always in the mix. If you have a sustainable organization where you're always bringing up young talent, you should never fall off the cliff, right? If you make the playoffs every year, it's baseball. Sometimes things are going to go your way. Sometimes things aren't going to go your way. But if you're always in the mix, you're giving yourself the best chance to win a World Series, right? That's the idea behind it. That's why Chaim Bloom was hired. Now, Chaim Bloom was hired for a second reason that nobody's going to really tell you, okay? The truth of the matter is, and listen, we can go down this avenue, and I have all the respect in the world for this man, but as I told you earlier, every executive has their strengths and weaknesses, right? Dave Dombrowski, he did a great job for a general manager who should have had a job in 1995, right? He knows very basic principles. He understands what it takes to win, and there is no tomorrow. That is his game plan, and you have to respect anybody that wants to win, right? Dave Dombrowski wants to win, and he wants to win at all costs, and it's very admirable. And, you know, all the respect in the world, and 2018 probably doesn't happen without him. But his views are also misguided. And if they had kept Dombrowski for longer, you turn into what the Detroit Tigers are, okay? And nobody wants that. Nobody wants what's going on with the Detroit Tigers. They've been bad for a very long time. And when you hire Dombrowski and he's your general manager for an extended period of time, you turn into Detroit, right? And the Red Sox only had Dombrowski for 4 years, but it was the perfect amount of time. Dombrowski is a short-term win-now GM. After the short term is done, he needs to be fired. Now, that's why you hire a guy like Chaim Bloom. Fixing a farm system is not a 1-year job. It's not a 2-year job. It's not even a fucking 3-year job. Fixing a farm system is a 5-year process, probably, right? That's how long this thing takes. If you go back to the Dodgers, it took them a long time to win. It took them a long time to win. Now, he's done a lot of great things, but it's time to take that next step. So let's first go over, why did the Red Sox hire Chaim Bloom, right? Why did the Red Sox hire Chaim Bloom? Where is the plan, right? And I'll show you this here. Okay, the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster. Keep that in mind, okay? 2015 is the first year that Dave Dombrowski took over, right? And I have every single draft class up here on the screen. We can go over it together. So what I'm going to show you here is, if you don't invest in your young talent, it's going to bite you in the ass. And that's exactly why Dave Dombrowski lost his job, right? And Andrew Benintendi's a fine pick at number 7 overall, but it's not just, getting a good player when you pick 7th. That's a given. You have to provide organizational talent throughout the draft, right? You got to get 4 guys that can play, 5 guys that can play, 6 guys that can play, and they don't always have to just make your team, right? They can be used in trades, right? Hey, I have a prospect. I drafted him in the 5th round. He looks like a stud, but we don't think he's going to make our team. Let's cash him in for a chip that will, right? And that stuff matters too. Let's go through it, right? Here's Dombrowski's first draft. Now, if you notice, there's not a single guy that can fucking play on the rest of the team. Nobody. I mean, there's not one guy on the rest of his draft that's a big leaguer. And Bobby Pointer was up for a cup of coffee. I mean, that's it. What are we looking at? Logan Allen? Nothing. I mean, that's a bad draft. That's a bad draft. It's a bad draft. Let's go to the following year, right? Let's go to the following year. Okay? This is a fucking terrible draft. This is a fucking terrible draft. Jay Groom was used in the Hosmer trade, and they had to use him in the Hosmer trade because he only had one option remaining, and he probably wasn't going to make the team next year. CJ Chatham, he was dealt for Victor Santos, a throw-in prospect by the Phillies, Sean Anderson, never made it. Nobody. He was traded for Eduardo Nunez. But these are the only guys that he's produced, right? Santiago Espinal, he was traded for Steve Pearce. He can actually play. But the rest of these guys, I mean, where's the talent? And I know it's very difficult to find talent late in drafts. And I'm not suggesting that you need to come away with 10 guys that can play. But you need to come away with 4 or 5 that can play. Right? How many of these guys? This is a Dave Dombrowski draft, and you can say whatever you want about Dave Dombrowski, and he can try to lie his way out of any situation, but the bottom line is he doesn't give a fuck about developing young talent, and it's exactly why he lost his job. Bobby Dahlbeck, right? He's actually contributing to the big league level, but he shouldn't because he sucks, right? He doesn't belong in the big leagues. Steven Nogasek, he was traded to the Mets, but he's not, I mean, you can find guys like Steven Nogasek anywhere. Mike Schwarren, they try to brag him up like he was going to be a starter. He's nothing. His drafts are pitiful. He's not coming away with any guys that are helping him in his big league level. Like, your guys from the 2016 draft, they got to be on your big league team. They got to help you somehow, some way, and he's getting nothing out of another draft class, right? Let's go to the following year. And Dombrowski was here for 4 years up until 2019. So 2019 is his last year. Here's another one. Here's another draft. Tanner Houck can pitch, right? Tanner Houck can pitch. He's proven that at this point, he's a decent enough reliever. His slider's sick, but okay. You hit on your first round pick. A lot of teams do, right? A lot of teams at minimum get a guy in the first round that can at least play, right? I don't know if Tanner Houck will ever be an all-star or a blue chip or red chip player, but he's at least somebody that can provide productive innings, right? No question about that. Look at the rest of his draft class. Round 2, Cole Brandon. Where the fuck's that guy? He's a nobody. Brett Netzer. I'm pretty sure he's off the team. Is he? Maybe is he the racist one? I don't remember. One of those infielders was the racist one that got cut. It might have been him. I don't want to accuse him because I don't remember off the top of my head, and I should. Jake Thompson, nobody. Scherf, nobody. There is nothing here. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. And if you're not providing big league talent, you shouldn't have your job. If you're not developing big league talent, get a new scouting director, right? Now, there is one guy that can play. Cutter Crawford can pitch, no question about it. But do they have Cutter Crawford on the team if they don't have Chris Sale on the team? Because that's where Chris Sale went to college, and I'm sure they have some connections there. Again, a lot of Florida picks, right? Is Cutter Crawford on the team if they don't have Chris Sale? I'm going to guess no, right? But none of these guys can play except for 1, 2. You can't. That's not acceptable. It's just not. It's just not acceptable. 2018. Let's go. Let's do another class, right? Again, hit on his first round pick. Congratulations. And a lot of that isn't really up to Dombrowski because Tristan Cassis, they can say what they want, but he kind of forced his way there, right? He said, hey, I'm in high school. I'll go to college. Put me in the Red Sox. That's basically what happened. The rest of his class, Thad Ward might become something. But again, you're not providing any big league talent here. You're not. Jaron Duran, he's on the big league team and he fucking stinks, right? That's not Chaim Bloom's fault. If you don't have organizational young depth coming through your system, he can't be expected to fix everything in such a short window when you're providing him nothing, right? You're in a deficit. The 40-man roster is the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster. If your young talent isn't producing anything that can go on the 40-man roster, you're off to a dreadful start. And that's kind of what Chaim Bloom has been put in. This isn't all on Chaim Bloom. Don't put this all on Chaim Bloom. It's not all his fault, right? He's doing a great job in terms of this stuff. He's doing a great job in terms of this stuff. And if you don't nail this stuff, you're not going to ever win long term. It's just the bottom line. And it doesn't really matter how many resources you have. Eventually, you're going to put yourself in such a hole that there's no climbing your way out of it. And that's what would have happened to the Red Sox. And it's exactly what's happening to the Detroit Tigers right now. There's nothing in these drafts. I mean, I would rather not have Jaron Duran. Like, I would like him to go yesterday. There's nothing here. There's quite literally nothing here. Again, there's nothing here. You can't just give me, oh, your first round pick worked, and then 4 consecutive years you have nothing else. That ain't good enough. It's not good enough. It'll never be good enough, right? Let's go to his last year. Now, we may be a little too soon on some of these guys, right? 2019 is not that long ago. But the bottom line is, it's looking like another bad draft, and right? Matthew Lugo is probably the only guy in this list that we think might make it, right? We think Matthew Lugo might make it. That's really the only one, right? Noah Song might make it, but I mean, we're in a waiting game. We haven't really seen him pitched. He went to Navy, right? I'm fine with taking a dart throw there in the 4th round, but when you miss so many times, Chris Murphy might make it, but that's to be determined, right? We just went through 4 straight drafts of producing 0 talent. And don't tell me, oh, his first round picks hit. Having like a 50% first round pick hit rate ain't good enough. You know, with 0 talent in the rest of your drafts. I mean, there's nothing here. This is all terrible. Nothing can play. That ain't good enough. It's not good enough. It'll never be good enough. So, what's the plan? The plan is very simple. Dave Dombrowski put this organization in a hole. And there's only one way to fix it. Hiring a guy that knows how to fix your farm system, right? Before Dombrowski was hired, the farm system, as we can see throughout the drafts, right, wasn't providing any young talent. And we can see that on the big league team. Bobby Dahlbeck's one of the only guys that have made it. Sucks. Jaron Duran is one of the only guys that have made it. Sucks. Where's his talent? Where's the young talent that Dave Dombrowski drafted and helped develop that is helping this current Red Sox team? The answer is basically zero. And when the answer is basically zero, there's only so much you can do to fix those problems, right? So don't tell me, hey, what's the plan? Hey, what's the plan? Hey, what's the plan? It's very simple. What's the plan? And we can go through it, right? Now, we don't have necessary information on all these guys, but we can kind of dive through and say, hey, this was a shortened season, right? You only had 5 rounds. And then he was already off to a deficit because the sign stealing bullshit rules that didn't exist, that Rob Manfred pretended that existed, but he wanted to have his way. So whatever. They didn't have a second round pick that year, whatever. Shortened season, only 5 round draft. It's a travesty. It was only 5 rounds, but let's get into it, right? Nick York looks like a very good player. Nick York looks like a very good player, and a lot of people criticized that pick. That one looks like it's going to work, and we don't know yet because it's too soon. He's a high schooler. That was 2 years ago, so way too soon to know. And again, Blaze Jordan. I mean, these guys, if we go to the Sox prospects, right? Nick York's a top 100 prospect in the sport. We go to Blaze Jordan. I mean, the things he's done with this farm system are unbelievable. Blaze Jordan is your 18th best prospect. That's crazy. What's he hitting? Look at these offensive numbers he's putting up right now. There is a plan, but obviously, when you're taking high school talent and you're waiting for them to develop, it takes time. It's a 5-year process, not a 2-year process, not a 3-year process. It's a 5-year process, and we can go quickly because obviously we don't have enough information. But look at these drafts that we're starting to, these drafts. I mean, we're talking about different things here now, right? Marcelo Meyer. I mean, that kid might be the best shortstop in baseball eventually. I like this Nathan Hickey guy. I mean, this guy, has anybody seen the numbers that the former Notre Dame first baseman's putting up? We have real prospects. We have real drafting and developing. Obviously 2022 is way too soon, but even in we go to single A, right? I mean, this is their one of their picks. Look at the numbers he's been putting up in the Florida Gulf Coast League, right? We have guys that are playing, right? And where's the Romero, right? He hasn't had a ton of great numbers, but he's 18, so we'll see. They've played like 5 games down there. But he's apparently really good friends with Meyer, so whatever. The point is, they're finally adding young talent. They're finally drafting and developing young talent. And let me show you the biggest difference in what has happened, right? So let's go to a random draft, right? I think 2014 was I think 2015 was the first one. Yeah. Right, so if we go through, where's the year they picked Brown, right? This right here, Jay Groom, is one of their big mistakes ever, right? And it's kind of not entirely similar, but it's a little bit similar to when the Red Sox picked Trey Ball like 4th overall. Another high school guy that these scouts were all over, right? The scouts were all over, but this new Red Sox staff, right? They're not taking high school pitchers anymore. They don't take high school pitchers anymore. It's not an option, right? So if you go through what Chaim Bloom has done, you won't find a single high school pitcher that they have picked, right? Here's a pitcher, Hawaii. Here's a pitcher, Florida State. That's a plan, right? We're not taking arms anymore that, are too far away. You got Tommy John. We don't know how their stuff plays. High school pitchers are very, very, very hard to evaluate, right? Now, he's from Puerto Rico, so it's a little bit of a different story, but they're not taking any American high school pitchers. They're not. They haven't. Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Indiana, Santa Barbara. Where's the next one? Miami, Ohio. Where's the next pitcher? JUCO. That's a JUCO school. Northwestern. They're not taking any pitchers that come from high school. They're too far away. Injury risk. We have no idea, right? That's a plan. They'll take high school position players, but they're not taking high school pitchers anymore. That's a plan, right? Southern Miss, pay attention. Old Dominion, UC Greensboro, TCU, Miami University, Oral Roberts, Long Beach State, Auburn. They take high school position players. No pitchers anymore. Missouri, Southern Miss, junior college, Oklahoma. It's a 4-year school. I don't know what that one is, but you get the point. So don't tell me what's the plan. What's the plan? What's the plan? What's the plan? I just showed you the plan. They're actually developing young talent. They're actually drafting guys that we think are going to contribute to the big league level, right? There actually has a plan, right? Jay Groom, the Red Sox took him in 2016, high school pitcher, didn't work out. We're not taking high school arms anymore, right? And here's a perfect example of a bad GM. This is the guy that the Tigers, bad GM, took ahead of Marcelo Meyer, right? He's not been good. This Jackson Jobe is very far away. We don't know what he's going to provide. He's all over the place, right? It's a bad whip number. A lot of walks. 22 walks is too many in 60 innings. To pass on a guy like Marcelo Meyer for Jackson Jobe is just nuts, right? So we're finally making good decisions with our young talent. That's a plan, isn't it? Now, the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster, right? And when Bloom took over this job, they started with a deficit. And they're still at a deficit, right? There's a lot of these guys that, it's improving, but Cordero's on the 40-man roster, and Dahlbeck's on the 40-man roster, and Yolmer Sanchez is on the 40-man roster, and Duran's on the 40-man roster, and Jalen Davis is on the 40-man roster, and Rich Hill and Caleb Ort, and now Familia, who they just added. There's a lot of Tyler Danish. A lot of guys who just aren't that good. But the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster. You have to have young talent, because if you don't have young talent on the 40-man roster, you can't send them up and down when you need them, right? The biggest problem that Chaim Bloom is quite not understanding to this point is he has to learn now. We are in year 3 of the process. And I hope this is part of his plan, but we don't know that yet. Right. And I don't know how he properly evaluates his players or what he thinks of it, but this is personally how I do it. In my personal opinion, the best way to do this is to kind of hand out grades, right? The way I do it is a blue chip player is a guy that, hey, we think this guy can go to the Hall of Fame, multiple time All-Star, top 5 player at his position. Blue chip guys are guys that turn the tides in our favor, right? Stars win titles. We need guys that are walking surplus value. We need aircraft carriers, because we can't win without aircraft carriers. Blue chip players. Nothing is more important than blue chip players. Then there's another tag, red chip players. These are guys that are capable big league starters, right? Who's a perfect example of a capable big league starter that I'm trying to think? Like Alex Verdugo, right? Alex Verdugo is a great red chip player. He's not a perfect player, but he's a guy, you put him in the starting lineup, you feel good about what you have. But will he ever be a top 5 outfielder at his position? Probably not, right? He doesn't hit enough homers, makes good contact, but is he ever going to hit 40 homers in a year? Probably not. Is he ever going to drive in 120 runs in a year? Probably not. So Verdugo is a great red chip player, right? Capable starter. You feel good about him, having him in the lineup, right? Those are the examples, right? So what you should do is you should go through your farm system, and this is a much better farm system than where the Sox were 3 years ago. I think Meyer's a blue chip player. So what you do is you figure out when he needs to go in the 40-man roster, right? And you can kind of go through this on your own. When does Marcelo Meyer need to be on the 40-man roster? He needs to be placed on the 40-man roster in 2024. Okay, so by 2024, that's in 2 years, I need to reserve a spot for him on my 40-man roster, right? And do I have an open spot on the 40-man roster to put Marcelo Meyer in that spot, right? Right now, I kind of got two holes, really, maybe one, right? They have Trevor Story for a long time, and hopefully they're smart enough to keep Xander Bogaerts, because if they're not smart enough to keep Xander Bogaerts, then we're just not off to a good start. He's the captain of the whole ship. He's so important to that organization. If you have to pay a little bit extra to keep him, you do it. I don't think that is the case for a lot of players, but in the terms of Xander Bogaerts, I do believe that is the case. You have to have some feel for this stuff. You're a big market team, grow a set of nuts and fucking pay what it takes. There's one guy who's on here, Jeter Downs. Now, we just went over it. I have 2 years to figure out if Jeter Downs can play. I have 2 years because we've already used his option. He's got 2 options remaining. I have 2 years to figure out if Jeter Downs can play. Now, a smart GM has the answer already. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. And we can pull up this article right here. The Red Sox obviously didn't get enough for Mookie Betts, right? Now, Chaim Bloom knows what he's doing. He's very smart when it comes to young talent. We've seen this, the way he's able to draft, right? And that's not on him. There's a lot of guys in the front office, of course. Tobani does a great job, but this wasn't good enough, right? But when you're starting with a deficit, you get talked into these things, right? You end up, this was the original trade. That's not how it went. But the biggest mistake they made was, hey, we can take less of a return if we just get rid of David Price. And that wasn't okay. It just wasn't okay, right? It just wasn't okay. And I know some of this stuff was ownership mandated, but it just wasn't enough. What he should have gotten, and I was listen, I wanted Jeter Downs, and I am totally fucking wrong about that. Or at least look like I'm going to be wrong about that. But you should have gotten 4 or 5 guys here where you don't trade Mookie Betts, right? Just getting Verdugo is nice, and it's a great starting point, and having an infield prospect like Jeter Downs in the trade is great, but we're still talking about, at that point, 30 cents in a dollar. I need probably both Tony Gonsolin and that redheaded fuck May in return. That's the kind of stuff they should be doing. But Bloom cares so much about making sure this is okay that he was okay with getting less in return. And that's the mistake that he was making, right? And he's made this mistake over and over and over and over again. The 40-man roster is the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster, right? Tristan Casas, right? We have Tristan Casas. Is he on the 40-man roster? I don't believe he is, right? So now I believe Tristan Casas, let's take a look. When does he need to be on the 40-man roster? I believe it should be like now, right? But look at how long this list is, right? Bloom, he's collected a lot of chips. Now it's time to cash the chips in. Oh, here it is. Yeah, so he needs to be added December of 2022, right? Franchi Cordero, gone. Bobby Dahlbeck needs to go. You already have Hosmer, right? The 40-man roster is the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster. You can only protect so many guys. Now, let's talk about Franchi Cordero, right? Franchi Cordero should have never been part of any trade package because he's not good enough to make a major league 40-man roster. That's how you have to think about these things. Now, that's not what I wanted, right? Here's a perfect example. And this may or may not end up kind of working, but it's the wrong process, right? It's the wrong process of information. I want to tell you why, right? Now, the Red Sox, as part of this trade, got Franchi Cordero for Andrew Benintendi. I understand that fixing the 40-man roster is important. And when you start with a deficit, there is urgency to make sure you get this stuff correctly, especially when you have the option to send Cordero up and down, right? I understand that. And when you have nothing, it's enticing. However, you can get a lot of these guys for free. Like Franmil Reyes just got DFA'd. If these teams only have so many 40-man roster spots, you're gonna get guys that you claim because other teams can't protect them. Christian Arroyo, unprotected waiver claim. Jalen Davis, unprotected, waiver claim. Rob Refsnyder, minor league contract, right? John Schreiber, minor league waiver claim, right? So these guys, they can't make your team. If you have too many guys on your 40-man roster, they're not going to make your team. And here's one. Ronaldo Hernandez, right? He's on your 40-man roster. Why is he on your 40-man roster? Former top 100 prospect. The Rays just gave him basically for Chris Mazza and Jeffrey Springs, right? Tampa Bay didn't have room in their 40-man roster for Hernandez. You get a catcher that can kind of hit on your 40-man roster, but you can't fill up your 40-man roster with guys like Franchy Cordero, even if you're in a deficit, because those guys eventually become free because other good teams don't have spots to protect them, right? And we get rid of that one. But the problem is you're not acquiring blue chip and red chip players, which is the whole point in trading guys from the big league team. If you're going to trade guys from the big league team, like an Andrew Benintendi, you need blue chip or red chip players. The entire terms of that deal is peanuts, right? It's peanuts, right? And we can go through and kind of look at a Witkowski, right? And Witkowski's on your 40-man roster, right? Winkowski is on your 40-man roster, but you decided that he was going to be on your 40-man roster. You decided that Winkowski was going to be on your 40-man roster. And these are the numbers that he's putting together. The problem is, I don't know if Winkowski is going to make it. It's just not a good enough return for a Benintendi, especially when you offered to eat some of the salary to get a better return for him, right? And we can go through the Winkowski stuff. This is probably the best guy that they got in the deal. But the problem is he doesn't have enough swing and miss. He's never going to be a blue chip guy because he never has enough swing and miss in his stuff. Maybe he can be a red chip guy if he eats enough innings, but look at these K rates. You're talking about bad chase rates, no whiffs. That guy's never going to be good. I mean, good. He's never going to be good. You decided that was your return for Andrew Benintendi, right? And I understand. Trust me, I understand that you were dealt with nothing and that getting guys that can make your 40-man roster has to be a priority. But you can't trade guys on the big league team for nothing. You can't do it, Chaim. It's not good enough. And don't tell me, Grant Gambrill and Luis De La Rosa and Freddie Valdez were also included. It's not good enough. It's not good enough because the guys you're picking and the guys on your farm system have to be added to the 40-man roster. You've already collected the young talent. Cash the chips in and grow a set of nuts, right? That's a failed trade. It's a bad trade. Now, let's go over one that he kind of got right? Just to be fair. And I was kind of critical of this one. I didn't really like this one. I didn't like this trade at all. And I will go down as being probably wrong. But the problem is, look at Connor Siebold is taking up a spot on your big league 40-man roster. You don't have room for no-name guys on the 40-man roster. And I don't even know if he's made enough starts to kind of be in here. He's pitched well in AAA, but he's already 26. And when you called him up, his stuff's not good enough. Look at it. No fastball spin. No fastball velo. Bad numbers when he's been on the big league team. And maybe he'll figure it out, but he's already 26. That's another spot you've taken away from your 40-man roster. And there are guys that need to be on the 40-man roster. Look at your prospects that are coming. Brian Mata, Brian Bayo, they're already on the 40-man roster. But Brandon Walter's going to need to be added. Or are you going to trade him? Chris Murphy. Or are you going to trade him? Thad Ward. Or are you going to trade him? You don't have enough spots. Wilkerman Gonzalez. I heard he was a top prospect, right? Let's go through it right here. Look at all these names you have to add to your 40-man roster, and some of these guys are gonna get claimed. Some of these guys are gonna get claimed. Cash your chips in, Chaim. You have enough now. You've done a great job. You've done a great job. Cash your chips in. So what you should do, and we'll go through this right now, and I won't harp on a lot of the dumb stuff, but even this trade, right? You get Nick Pivetta. Great. That's another guy taking up spots on your 40-man roster. And I'm not saying Nick Pivetta is fucking terrible, but he's nothing more than a red chip guy, right? He's nothing more than a red chip guy. 4.51 ERA, and it's kind of where he sat a year ago, right? That's an average big league starter. You can get these guys for free at almost any time. You can call a guy up through the minors that has a lick of talent, and they can do a 4.51. You know, those are not great results. But if you want to say that's better than what they had before, sure. But you can't invest all of your time into this. There has to be a pathway towards cashing the chips in, which is what Chaim Bloom is now not doing. He was hired for a reason. He is executing that reason. This is your proof of that reason. And let's quickly go through it here, right? I think Meyer can be a blue chip player. This is just my personal belief. We'll see what other people think. I think Cassis can be a blue chip first baseman. I think Bayo can be probably a red chip starter, which is good. I think Nick York can probably be a red chip infield starter. Not many people know who this kid is, but I'm just going to tell you this right now. This is a blue chip player, and if you trade him, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. Some of these other guys, too soon to say, but Rafaela, probably a red chip player. So there are guys in here that are going to make your big league team. Probably a red chip player, Blaze Jordan. There are even down the list here. There are guys now. Like, there are guys, right? Can he be a red chip reliever? He's got a 2.54 ERA in AAA, and we'll go over this one now, right? There are a lot of guys here. I think this Hickey kid can play. There are a lot of guys. Matthew Lugo. I think he's gonna make the big leagues. You have a lot of guys now. Right, you spent 3 years kind of building this process up, and it doesn't mean you have to stop building the process up. It just means now you're running out of roster spots, and there are no more room for taking fucking bad experiments. You've built up the prospect depth. They are on the way. So let's do this one, right? Now, Bloom deserves credit for this one, right? One of the things that you should do as a big league, big market general manager is you should weaponize your payroll, right? The first year of the Bloom experiment, you knew the Sox were going to be bad, and that's okay. Sometimes you got to tear it down to start over, and that was probably the right course of action after they fired Dombrowski. This is one they got right, and it's one I defended, right? You eat Adam Ottavino's salary for a year. He goes into your bullpen and can pitch, right? And when you don't have anything, which is what they didn't have in 2021, now we're a year later and we're starting to collect some chips. But back then, they didn't really have a ton. You eat a guy like Frank German. The Yankees gave him to you. But here's your problem. Why is he on the 40-man roster? Why isn't he pitching? Why isn't he contributing to the big league level? Where is the guys that you have acquired that are contributing to the big league level? Because he's made a lot of these trades that we got to beef up the farm system. We got to beef up the farm system. And we got to beef up the farm system. But none of it fucking matters if they don't make the 40-man roster. Right? Here's another perfect example. Is this fucking Frank German gonna pitch? Why isn't he on a big league team? We're in a pennant race. You don't got time to be throwing out Caleb Orr. You know, Caleb Ort shouldn't be pitching any of these games. Why isn't Frank German out there? Is he not ready? Why did we trade for him then? Those are the things you have to think about. Really quickly, let's go to the Christian Vasquez trade. And I know Vasquez hasn't been an all-world guy, but this Emmanuel Valdez, he's done nothing but hit since you traded for him, right? Let's go through it. Valdez. I don't think they updated this list. They couldn't have. Yeah, I don't think they updated this list because he's a guy they got for Christian Vasquez. He's a Houston prospect. So he's going to be needed to be added to the 40-man roster. Where's your spots for him? Show me the spot. Show me the spot he can go, because we've already made a spot for Cassis. We've already made a spot for Meyer eventually, and we got 2 years to figure out Downs. Where's your spot? Because right now we have a guy that can't make the team now. Now we have a guy that can't make the team and that we just traded for. We traded the starting catcher for a guy that can't make the team. Why is Yolmer Sanchez on the team? I thought they were in the pennant race. They're in a pennant race. They told me the goal is to make the playoffs. Why isn't Manuel Valdez not on the team? Oh, here it is, just number 2022. Why isn't he on the team? Here's his numbers. 296 in AAA, 357 in AA. He's off the charts, right? I can show you his AAA numbers with Boston, but he's off the charts right now. You want to make the Christian Vasquez trade, fine. But don't fucking trade for a guy if you're not going to use him. If you don't have a spot on the 40-man roster for him. Because that's nonsense. That's nonsense. That's nonsense, and you can't protect these guys. You can't protect all of them. How you going to fit all these guys in your 40-man roster? And I'm not saying all these guys should be on your 40-man roster, but you can't possibly protect them. Here's the guy, Thad Ward. Where's he going to pitch? Brandon Walter. Where's he going to pitch? Show me the roster spots. Show me the roster spots. Now, this is the biggest problem that fans are going to have with this Hunter Renfroe trade, right? There are two mistakes with the Hunter Renfroe trade, and now he's acknowledged he's fucking botched it because they cut Jackie Bradley. Let me just go on a little bit of a rant here, right? I was for Jackie Bradley because the trade isn't about Jackie Bradley, but he has to at least be on your team, right? I think, personally, let me stop the screen for a little bit. It is my personal belief. I think Jackie Bradley is a valuable big league player. And the WAR numbers aren't going to tell you that, but elite traits are a good thing. And they should always be viewed as a good thing. Jackie Bradley plays a brilliant defensive center field, or right field, or left field, wherever you want to put him. He's a brilliant defender. And as a fourth outfielder, that's great. As a fourth outfielder, that's great, right? As a fourth outfielder, especially you're going to carry a fucking bum like Duran on your team, maybe having a guy like Jackie Bradley be the fourth outfielder is a smart move, right? So I wasn't against the Bradley thing. But let me show you why now it's such an egregious mistake. They're paying nobody, right? If we go to the next year's payroll, you're paying nobody, right? Cash the fucking chips in. The total payroll is nothing. Who are they paying? Who are they paying? This is the Boston Red Sox. Who are they paying? Who are they paying? Trevor Story, an old Chris Sale contract, hopefully a Bogarts extension. They're not paying anybody. They're not paying anybody. You can only we're past the point in investing into the minor leagues. Mission accomplished. You've done a great job. We showed you. Look at all these guys that need to be added to the 40-man roster. Look at all these guys. Look at all these guys. This is a top 10 farm system in the sport. We're past that point. We're past that point. So if we go, that's what I'm gonna get to. But if we go to this Renfroe trade, okay, and if you want to add Benela and if you want to add David Hamilton, fine. But where are they? You're telling me none of them? He's 28 now. He's at 146 in AA, and Hamilton can run. Show me where they're going on the 40-man roster. Right? Where's your 40-man roster spot for Benela? Where is it? Where is it? Where's the 40-man roster spot you're reserving for him? Where's the 40-man roster spot you're reserving for David Hamilton? Where is it? Well, I don't see it. I don't see it. Where's the 40-man roster spot? Blue chip, red chip players are the only thing that matters. And if those guys are neither, you've collected more chips for the sake of collecting more chips. And if you're not using them in future trades, you've really fucked up. The problem is, this is not going to be on here, but they're paying Jackie Bradley, right? They basically traded Hunter Renfroe to eat Jackie Bradley's contract. That's not okay. That's his Blue Jays contract, right? Look at this. You've retained all of that. You've retained all of that. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that for guys that aren't going to make your 40-man roster? Why are you doing that? Huh? Why are you doing that? And I was for this trade, but you can't cut Jackie Bradley. You've made that decision. And the worst part is they fucking trotted Jackie Bradley out there and did nothing, right? They never replaced Hunter Renfroe on the roster, right? They waited 4 months too long to add Tommy Pham. 4 months too long to add Tommy Pham. Why wasn't he on your team in April? Why wasn't he on your team in April? Right? Why wasn't he on your team in April? We know Jackie Bradley's not a big league player every day. He's the fourth outfielder. Right? Look at. What? Tommy Pham hoped to join the Red Sox months before the deadline. That's not okay. That's not okay. That's not okay. Dave Dombrowski would have made sure that happened. And that's the difference between Chaim Bloom and Dave Dombrowski. One guy cares about the farm system. One guy cares about the big league team. That shouldn't have taken 4 months. It just shouldn't have. It just shouldn't have. And I'm not saying Tommy Pham's an all-world killer. But if you're going to make this move and trade Hunter Renfroe, there needs to be a big league replacement on the roster. Right? And they've given away at least 10 games because of it. It's not okay. It'll never be okay. Right? Misguided is the word we're going to use for Chaim Bloom, right? Misguided. And it's okay. Listen, this trade was okay. That's the important thing to remember. This trade was okay. But don't sit here and tell me you're going to fucking cut Jackie Bradley. And don't sit here and tell me you don't have spots on the team for Hamilton and Benela. Don't do that. And don't sit here and tell me you're not gonna get a big league replacement for Hunter Renfroe. And then you're gonna decide, hey, we've made a mistake. We waited 4 months too long. Now we're gonna bring in Tommy Pham. Too late. You're 5 games back in the wild card today as I record this video. That's why. That's part of the reason why. You've given away at least 5 games because of this. At least 5. I mean, listen, and we could pull up Jackie Bradley's numbers, right? We'll pull up Jackie Bradley's numbers. Let's go through it, right? Jackie Bradley, he's probably a negative win player, right? I'm going to guess. Negative win player. But he shouldn't have 274 at-bats. He should have about 150 at-bats. Maybe less. He should be your fourth outfielder. He plays when a guy needs a day off, hopefully against a righty that he can hit, right? Hopefully against a righty that he can hit. And a defensive replacement late in games. They had him as a big league player, and his at-bats prove that. It's not okay. It's not okay. But when you care so much about making sure this is right, these are the mistakes you're going to make. And all I'm asking is just to be a consultant. That's all. All right, and we went over the Ottavino trade. Weaponize your payroll. That's another big problem. That's another big problem we're having right now, right? The Red Sox are over the luxury tax. Why are they over the luxury tax? This team's not making the playoffs. If you wanted to make a playoffs, Hosmer and Tommy Pham should have been on the roster in April. It's not okay. Right? Let's fast forward, right? Okay, let's fast forward. Let's fast forward, right? We've shown you why Bloom was hired. We've shown you the progress that he's made in the farm system. And the casual fan, they're not going to understand any of that stuff. And they're not going to understand sort of the plan that goes behind that, right? No high school pitchers anymore. We're not drafting them, right? No high school pitchers anymore. The Jay Groom mistake will never be done again as long as Bloom is running the team. That's a good thing, right? There is a plan. You have to invest in your big league team. You are the general manager of the fucking Boston Red Sox. You have more resources than pretty much anybody not named the Yankees or maybe now the Mets and the Dodgers, right? You cannot punt on a fucking position on a fucking big league team. You can't do it. You can't punt. You cannot punt on a position for a big market team. I don't give a fuck who you are. You can't punt. Kyle Schwarber needed to be kept at all costs. At all costs. And I wrote this in January. It's a fucking travesty. This man's not on the team, right? And all he would have done is taken a 3-year contract for $60 million. How is that not an acceptable price tag for a guy that's basically leading the National League in home runs? I don't give a fuck what his WAR number is. And if he's not the best first baseman in the world, he's basically, by the end of the year, he's hitting 34 bombs, right? And his WAR number, I mean, that'll go up. Your alternative can't be fucking Cordero. This is what their alternative was. Nonsense. This is what their alternative was. Nonsense. It's not okay. It's not okay. And that fucking asshole sat there for 4 months, knowing, not even 4 months. When did they lose Schwarber? Whenever the lockout was over? So this fucking asshole sat here for 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, not knowing they didn't need a first baseman? How do you do it? How do you do it? You're telling me there wasn't a spot on your 40-man roster for a first baseman? I know you're saving one for Cassis, but he's not there yet. Now Hosmer's on the team. Why wasn't he on the team in April? We know this wasn't going to work. I knew it. You want me to pull up another post? I can do that. I have enough tabs open, but go read the site. Everybody knows I thought that guy sucked. This guy sucks too. And look, let's show you. MLB first base production. You're a big market fucking team. You've given away games. You've given away games. This is not okay. We're not in the top 10. We're not in the top 13. This is first base big league production. We're not in the top 16, not in the 17, not 18, 19, not 20. That's only 23rd because of Hosmer. That was 29th before Hosmer. That's not okay. That's not okay. It's never going to be okay. Point 4. Look at it. That's not including Cordero. With Cordero, you're down here. With Cordero, you're down here. It's not okay. It's not okay. If they miss the playoffs, it's because of you. For being an asshole. You tell me you didn't have enough chips to make that Hosmer trade work? You didn't have enough chips to keep Schwarber? You didn't have enough chips to go trade for Josh Bell? I'm not saying it had to be Schwarber. Sure, you want to get outbid and be a little pussy? That's fine. You don't got enough chips here? And look at Corey Rozier and Max Ferguson. You got 2 prospects just for making the Hosmer move. You couldn't have figured that out in April. It's not acceptable. It's not okay. It's not okay. So, while, listen, his heart can be in the right place for building this up. And again, he's continuing to build it up. Every trade he's making, he's winning the farm system rankings. No question about it. He's winning the farm system rankings. His farm system's going to keep shooting to the moon. Going to keep shooting to the moon. Here's another guy that just got. Is he going to make the 40-man roster? Show me where he's going on the 40-man roster. Show me where he's going. Show me where he's going. Show me where a Brady was going to fit on the 40-man roster. Is he a blue chip player? Is he a red chip player? Does he replace any of these guys? It's not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. Right? You can't punt on fucking first base. and be a big league general manager and expect people to take you seriously. It's not okay. Now, let's go to a little bit of a right. And we kind of talked about this already. They got Hosmer. It was a good move. We don't have to get into it any further. But you can't be a big league general manager of a sports team and expect us to take you seriously that you didn't know you needed a first baseman for 4 months. And that there are literally players making fun of you. Tommy Pham should have been here 4 months ago, and he's ripping you in the media because you're a pussy. That's not okay. This is the Red Sox. If you want to be a pussy, go work for Tampa. Go work for Cleveland. This is a big league opportunity. You can't do those things. It's criminal. It should end you up in fucking prison. And this is coming from a guy that's defending you. That Bloom should keep his job. That Bloom is really smart. And if they just follow the things that Bloom's doing, even with the mistakes he's making, they're in a better spot. I'm not denying any of those things. But he also has to learn to be a big league general manager for the Boston Red Sox. And right now, he's not doing any of those things. He's not. So, let's go to another thing on the list. It's probably one of the last things on the list. When you're in a deficit, sometimes you gotta make experiments. Sometimes you have to take dart throws. It's about taking the right dart throws. It's about taking the right dart throws. And this is something that while he hasn't gotten all of these correct, he at least deserves some recognition for trying, right? So let's go over it again. We already kind of went over Rob Refsnyder, minor league signing, great move. Even a Christian Arroyo claiming him, great move, right? John Schreiber, wherever he's at, great move. But you can't take 800 of them, right? You take 4 or 5. This one didn't work, right? And it was never going to work, right? And if he had just called me, I would have told him it wasn't going to work, right? And the Kike Hernandez thing kind of worked, but he's not healthy now. He had a good October. He didn't really put up great numbers. Martin Perez didn't work, right? Why were you picking up Garrett Richards? What are you doing? What are you doing? Right? What are you doing? But this is an experiment that has worked, right? I defended him for this one. He's Hunter Renfroe, another experiment. He's gotten a lot of these experiments correct. And I believe that he should continue to take these experiments, right? Take these experiments to supplement your team. But let's bring it back. Where are the 40-man roster spots, right? Michael Wacha has one, wherever he is. Michael Wacha has one. You can take the experiments. Rob Refsnyder has one. You can take the experiments. Try the experiments. We're all for trying the experiments. But you can't punt on positions. You can't punt. You can't punt on things. You can't punt on things, and it can't be your only alternative. Like, that's a minor league contract. That's a great minor league contract. This is your rotation, so it's a little bit of a different story. You need arms regardless. Minor league contract, right? And he's gotten those things right. But if you have to protect 800 fucking guys, guess what? I don't have room to take his experiment anymore. He's blocked. I don't have room to take his experiment anymore. He's blocked. I don't have room to take his experiment anymore. I need a spot in the 40-man. So, in conclusion, this is going to be a very important offseason that's coming up for Chaim Bloom and the Boston Red Sox. Very, very important. Very important offseason that's coming up for the Boston Red Sox. They need to re-sign Xander Bogaerts. They need to give Rafael Devers an extension. Those things are obvious. What his main objective needs to be for this upcoming offseason, and they're probably not going to make the playoffs. It is what it is, and it's his fault. It's his fault because he punted on right field, and he punted on first base. And if he had gotten those things correct, they'd be in a wild card spot. That's at least 10 games. That's at least 10 games because you are a pussy. It's not okay. So, what he should do this offseason is go down the list. Which guys are red chips? Which guys are blue chips? And red chips can be traded for the right price. Can be traded for the right price. Blue chips should never be traded. This guy should never leave your organization, and he should retire a Red Sox. This guy should never leave your organization, and he should retire a Red Sox. Right? Those things. Those kind of things. Red chip and blue chip. So let's go through it, right? Josh Winkowski is on the market. He's on the market. He's your first round pick, so he's a little bit young. Chris Murphy should be on the market. Connor Siebold should be on the market. And Sin Paulino should be available in a trade. Thaddeus Ward, kind of an interesting arm, but if you can upgrade, you can upgrade. And Manuel Valdez, is he going to make your 40-man roster? If not, he should be on the fucking trade market. Connor Wong, is he going to be your big league catcher? Let's go over Connor Wong. What are they doing at catcher? You traded Vasquez, maybe you bring Vasquez back. What's going on here? Who's playing and who's not playing? Because how long are you going to keep these two in the minors for? Is your plan to go with Reese McGuire and those two? Because I don't think that's good enough for a big league team. I think Reese McGuire is probably okay for a backup catcher. Where's your Wilson Contreras type guy? Are one of those guys good enough to be Wilson Contreras? Are any of those guys blue chip players? Probably not, right? Available. Or at least something, right? Figure out catcher. I probably wouldn't trade Blaze Jordan. But other than that, available. He's a second round pick, so hold on. Maybe you keep two of these guys, right? Available. Maybe you keep him. Available. Not available. Is he going to pitch? Right? Go down the fucking list. Figure out who you're trading and who you're not trading. And then supplement your team. Can we get a starter? Right? Can we get a starter to replace Rich Hill? Can we get a reliever that's not, can we get a bona fide closer? Can we shop 3 of those guys for a closer? You've collected the chips. You've done enough. You've already accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. You're not getting anything out of Chris Sale. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. You can't count on it regardless, right? Experiment. Fine experiment. Why didn't you trade JD at the deadline? I don't know. These are all questions you got to ask yourself. The important thing to remember is that Chaim Bloom is doing his job, but he's very misguided, and he needs my help in the worst way possible. And the bottom line is, he was hired for a reason. He has accomplished what he's been hired to do. It is now time to prove that he's a big league general manager. And right now, he has not done that. Tommy Pham made fun of him for not trading for him 4 months ago. The Eric Hosmer trade should have been done 4 months ago. They didn't replace Hunter Renfroe. They didn't replace Kyle Schwarber, and that's why they're not in the playoffs. Simple as that. You want to go through your vision of having sustainable organizational success, maybe have the nuts to cash in some of those chips so that you follow through on that plan. Because right now, your plan is very obvious. Collecting the chips, and there's nothing wrong with collecting the chips, which is why I defended the Renfroe trade. But you then have to replace Renfroe on the roster, and then you then have to use those chips. It could be them or other chips to find other holes and replace them. Okay? So hopefully, I think people have a better understanding of the things that Bloom is getting correct. Experiments, he's doing a pretty good job. Big league experiments like Michael Wacha, and he deserves credit for signing Hunter Renfroe, and he deserves credit for John Schreiber and those kind of things, and Rob Refsnyder and Christian Arroyo, right? He deserves credit for those experiments. But the experiments are only really necessary if you don't have young talent coming through your system. Now that there is young talent, there's no room for both. So cash in the chips that you have that are deemed as expendable and fix the fucking holes on the roster. Because this is a team at this point that should be competing for titles. We've gone through the rebuilding stage. It's over. It's done with. Organizational sustainability. now and through the rest of the time you're in charge. So let me know what you think. All I want is just to be a consultant for the team. That's it. Just call me a couple times a year. That's all I want. Call me a couple times a year. You can have all the credit. I don't want any of it. Don't need any of the credit. Just call me a couple times a year. Put me as a consultant on the team website. Case closed. So 40-man roster is the 40-man roster is the 40-man roster. Invest in young talent. Invest in experiments. Cash in the chips. Don't leave black holes in your fucking team. Thank you guys for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter, Trey Daubert. Thank you guys. And this was fun. Maybe we'll do this for another GM. See ya.